Well, it may not be Wednesday at 1, so it's Thursday at 1. I'm a little late. I was a little under the weather yesterday. I'm fine. But it's time again for Drummer Nation. Hey, I forgot to put my other lights on, which I'll do post-haste. We're going to talk about electronic drumming and the use of software for drummers, and maybe some tips and tricks for all of you people trying to Skype and live stream. Okay, stick with us. Coming right up on Drummer Nation Live. Don't go anywhere. It's time for Drummer Nation.
Introducing the Star Festival snare drum from Gary Astrich, a handcrafted and precision replica of the rarest and most iconic of drums, Ringo Starr's 1963 Ludwig Jazz Festival. Each instrument is authorized and hand-signed by Ringo Starr and will benefit his charity, the Lotus Foundation.
Whoops, I don't think I have the sound with that. Hit the wrong one. Okay, let's go to the next ad. Okay, turn those lights on. Bada bing, bada boom. Bada bing. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Hey, my favorite line from Spaceballs, even in the future, nothing works. No, I'm trying to do a lot of switching myself here, and a lot of people are finding out just what that's all about. Anyway, I think we have a great show today. First of all, I hope everybody is staying safe and hunkering down. Yes, I'm in Georgia, where our governor's decided that, hey, man, let's just open everything up. I don't want to get into politics because it doesn't really relate to drumming, except that all of us are out of work with this whole thing, and nobody knows when it's coming back. But that means if you're home as drummers, creative people, I know what you're doing. You're practicing, you're listening, and trying new things. And for me, it's been a return to looking at something I sort of put away a few years ago, which is electronic drumming, and not just using the pads like you see behind me over there, but using software. And we're going to look into that on this show, and I think we'll have a good time with that. You know, the software everybody's looking for is jamming software, real-time jamming, so that musicians, not for a concert or a gig or anything, but, you know, just to call up your buddies and everybody gets on and online and you play some music together. I've been assured that that's pretty much not very feasible by some people in the know. On the other hand, other people are saying it's beginning to happen. I know it sure would be nice. So I get comments here. Let me pull those up. So if you want to chime in and talk to me, let me know that you're watching. Thumbs up, emoticon, or a comment. Please do. I want to start off with talking about some software called BFD by F Expansion. And I'm going to go to their website and show you that, which is here. Yeah, there you go. That's their website. And they have a drum engine, which I'm going to show you more of in a few minutes. But they use something called VST instruments, which are not like your normal type of samples. In fact, they're sampled a zillion times. Let me go here and find these files and show you where I am. Okay, F Expansion data. All right, so let's go to something like, I don't care, it doesn't matter. Here's trying to think of one I really know especially. Stanton cymbals, let's look at those. So, you know, they've got grooves, and there's tons of them, and we'll be talking about those. Each one of those is a palette with like 40 patterns in it. And audio, there's a different way you do audio here. You see that says 18-inch crash? and there's bell, bow, and edge. So the bell is the bell of the cymbal, and the way they do it, you see how many? There's 21 samples there just for the bell. And you go to the edge, which is where you would crash the cymbal, and there's 21 there. And you go to the hit, which is like where you would ride the cymbal, and there's a bunch of them there. And when you go to the hi-hat, forget about it, man. There's closed shank, closed tip, half stick, I don't know what all those mean. Open tip. Anyway, each one of those has boatloads of them. So you can see that this is not just a sample thrown in for, where you get 2 or 3 sounds. The idea is that the software opens and closes the volumes, the velocities, as we play in real time, if you're playing it. And that enables you to play with a lot more expressivity, musicality, and nuanced. Now, you got to think of this as a different instrument. It's not a real set of drums, and it plays differently, much like a piano plays differently than an organ or a synth or electric piano or all those things. They all have a different voice, and they all have different timbres and techniques that need to be explored. So one of the things, just to show you what I was talking about with the cymbal, if you can hear it from this side. Sorry, I can't get to it. There's a bell. That's the bow. That's the edge. And snare drums have way more than that, and so do hi-hats. And then you have the variable, the foot has to be working with it, open and close it. I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. But once you get into the products, you see that there are, and I'll go back to their site to show you, there are expansion packs, and that's where I come in and some of my friends. BFD3 expansion packs. And if you go here, essentially what you can do is buy a set of stuff. So here's a jazz noir kit. You want to look at that. That's going to be, you open it up and it tells you what it is. That's a rare Camco kit, Istanbul cymbals, a round badge Gretsch snare. They all have a theme and a point of view or a timbre or a sound in mind. Let's go back to view products. You see there's a set of wooden snares, some crush drums, metal snares, vintage recording techniques. Some of them are really hip, newer stuff. Some of them are older things. That's John Bonham's kit under the London sessions there. So there's, I'll show you in a minute. I have probably 100 snare drums. There's a whole Sabian digital vault. Zildjian has one in 2 parts, 1 and 2. Some of the payloads on these are 20 gigabytes or more. You can look into taiko drumming, but let's look at some of these that I was involved with. The first one was Stanton Morse cymbals. I went to the guru of this stuff, John Emmerich, who now works for Alesis, one of the head dogs there, and said, I met him by chance at a trade show, and I said, hey, John, I'd like to do all of my cymbals. This is when I had Bosphorus cymbals. I'd like to do all the cymbals as digital representatives so I could sell cymbals on a different. He said, well, you can't do that. That's giant. That would take mega amounts of DVDs back before we were streaming everything. And I said, well, tell me what I can do. And he said, well, you can do one set of cymbals and put it out there. And I know a company, F Expansion, that is allowing third-party people to come in and develop for them, approved ones like him, and put it out there in a way that they will distribute it, market it, and sell it, and there's a revenue stream. So the revenue stream was split between them and my company and the artist involved. In this case, it was Stanton Moore. And I'm going to show you his pack in a few minutes. But these are his cymbals when we were with Bosphorus, sampled to the nth degree, and his grooves. And we didn't do his drums because he plays Gretsch and they were already done. So back to the products. The next one we did was with my buddy Peter Erskine. Now, Peter is somebody who's always got his ear to the ground for something new. And he called me up and said, hey, man, I like that stuff. I was involved with samples and going way back. So hit me to this and let's do a project together. So we got John involved, and he's the guru behind the techniques of all this. I was the producer who was making sure the guy who puts the people, the plan, and the money together and makes it work. But John was the technical guru, and of course Peter Erskine is the artist that he is. And you see that little video down here? I'm going to show you that in a minute, because that's where we get to the real finished product. Okay, the last one I did before they kind of shut this down, and it's gone through some changes now, but the last one I did was with my buddy Mike Meadows, who had Swan Percussion, and there they are. And it's a whole bunch of handmade wooden instruments. And the samples have some of our haptic cymbals with them when I was with Crescent that were meant to be played with the hands. So Jamie Haddad helped us with those. And that's a very cool kit too. So you see, you can add tons of them. All right, let's get out of that. And let's go to the program itself. Here's how it opens up in the kit view. That's the bass drum, snare drum. You see, you can play them all with a mouse if you want to, or you can program them with anything you want, man. You can use any kind of MIDI input, and if you speak MIDI, you know what that is. By the way, I'm not an expert on this, and I'm just trying to help you not be what they call a MIDIot. You know, MIDI was invented in the 80s, and it hasn't changed a hell of a lot, and most drummers are just not hip to it, and keyboard players laugh at us because of it. But you see what I've done here. You've got kits, presets, which include, if you go to a preset, it includes the kit, the mix, sometimes there's effects and stuff on it, the groove palette, stuff like that. So I'm going to go in here, sticking with the Stanton Moore thing, and we're going to go to preset kits. And you're going to see, man, there's tons of them. But I'm going to go to the library of user kits. These are ones I made. And so here's one with, says Gretsch Jazz Kit Stanton Moore cymbals. And we load that up here, and you'll see them loading here. The sounds are loading. And once they do, you can hear them. We're not seeing the whole strip. There it is. So here's the bass drum, snare drum, toms. These are the boss for cymbals. If you click this button, you can see what they are. Okay, there's that bass drum. There's that snare drum. If you didn't want that snare drum, you go up here to drums and you click the snare. And you see, I got a few snare drums in here, man, because I've procured all these extra kits, all these expansion packs. Look at the drums I have. I mean, if you really want to use this as a learning tool, you know, what does a Radio King Select snare sound like? Well, let's plug that in, man. And it's going to load that to there. And here's a whatever you want, man. There's a real interesting in the end. It's one by, oddly enough, by Zildjian that was made out of bronze. So that's processed. Here's Zildjian on pure. That means it's the snare drums, snares on, and it's not processed. And if you look here, it tells you that is a Zildjian cast bronze snare drum. There's the size of it, and it's a 6.5 by 14. It's bronze, and it's being played with a wooden stick. And there's that. So maybe we'll just leave that in there if you want, and let's play. Let's go to the grooves here. So the grooves, I've already set them up, but I'll show you. I'm going to go to, again, Stanton Moore grooves, and here's one he calls Big Chief, which is a Professor Longhair tune that Johnny Vodakovich is on the recording of. Now, he wanted to make sure it was clear that he's not trying to... You know, did I not have my computer on? I was looking at my computer, but I'm not sure I was showing you. This is everything I was looking at here, okay? So I don't want to go back through all that, but there's your presets. There's the kit we're playing. There's the grooves here. And he wasn't trying to copy that, but beats inspired by that. So let's listen to this one. Okay. Now, that was recorded at 120. This is at 100. So we'll go back and change that to 120. And we got this. Now, you can go into the groove editor if you're savvy on that stuff, and you see the grooves, where you can have a look at just how he does that. You know, how is it lined up? Maybe they're not they've been nuanced so that you try to capture that performance of the drummer without and stay with the grid too. So these are things that you can drop into your DAW or whatever you want to do. All right. So now I'll go back to me, and you can see it's a learning tool, man. Back to this again. Look at all the palette. The palette of beats are over here. You know, he's got 30 some odd beats, and then the green ones are fills, and that's just on this one, which was the palette was what was he call it, Johnny V? No, Big Chief. All right, so he's got tons of those, and you could sort of make a book out of it on your own. You know, you could go through this and say, well, I can either write down that pattern, transcribe it, or I can use some software, drop it into my DAW and spit out a transcription of it and work on it that way. And you can put it in any tempo you want. You can learn a lot about the drums. It's just something where you don't have to jump in too deeply to get really have a lot of fun with this. And you don't need the happiest, fanciest, coolest module in the world to make this work. It just has to be something that can connect with MIDI. So how am I doing that? Let's get to that. I have another camera here. Yeah. So let's show you that. All right, this is my rig here. I'm going to turn around slowly so as to not make you sick. But then I'm off mic. Here we go. So that's an electronic Yamaha kit. There's the brain. And it's going all the way around the room behind the natural kit. Try not to throw up. And into the interface down there, the Motu at the bottom on the right. And then into the computer and into BFD. And then I've got it going into my Rodecaster Pro rather, and then out of that and into another rig, into the iPad, and you don't have to do all that stuff. Let's get back to away from that camera before I make you sick. Okay, so let me show you some. That was the groove on that, and I used it to practice with, so I did a little video earlier this morning. I didn't edit it or anything, and it's a first take, so give me a break. But here's me playing Stanton's cymbals and drums sounds and not copying that beat, but working from it, let's say. Just a little excerpt. Here you go. Okay, so that's me practicing my digital chops and my Stanton Moore grooves. And you can put it in any tempo you want. You can play it back. You can drop it into DAWs. You can do it anything you want. You can take all that play-along media you have, and you know you got plenty of them. Here's one here. My buddy Jim Riley, who's done my show, Survival Guide for the Modern Drummer, that's got like 100 and some odd recordings in it with parts and written parts and with and without drums. So you can drop them both drop those into your recorder and pull these up, and it's a great practice tool. Just a great practice tool. Let's go to somebody else here. I wanted to show you the Erskine stuff. So let me go back to the computer, and here's something we call Virtually Erskine. There's probably a lot of ways to load this, but I'm going to go to Presets, Library, BFD Virtually Erskine. And there are all of his kits that are set up as kits. I've got a couple of duplications in there. But let's go back to the kit screen, and let's load up this kit. And this would be Peter's drums and Peter's cymbals from when he was with DW. So there's a 22-inch kick. There's his high tom, which it tells you is an 8x10 DW. There's his 9x13 16 by 16. It tells you all that. And then these are his Zildjian cymbals. Now, how did I do that when I was working with Bosphorus? Well, my company was called Cymbal Masters, and we put out these products with various drummers and other brands because we respected their endorsements. We didn't make any attempt to claim that Mr. Erskine was involved as an artist other than DW and, at the time, and Zildjian. So this is all completely legal and doesn't step on any toes. We had great respect for the Zildjian company and the Zildjian family, and the same thing with Don Lombardi and DW and all that stuff. So it's not competitive in that regard. Okay, so now we can load Peter's grooves, and let's get the groove here, groove editor, and I think I liked one, hang on, groove, not groove editor, grooves, library, find Mr. Erskine on here, Peter Erskine, and he's got a bunch of these grooves, and I'm going to go down the one that said rock. I think I like that one, or maybe it was funk. Let's hear it. No, it wasn't that one. It was this one. Rock. Okay, so that's Peter, man. And it's going to work through the palette, which are morphing beats, like what Garibaldi used to call a beat sheet. Start with an idea and you change it. There's his cymbals. Now, the other thing is, if I decided I didn't like that bass drum, I wanted to change it, I could do that. But if I thought it was too loud or too soft, there's louder, there's softer. And then you could go in this side and do all kinds of changes to the microphone placements and the snare bleeds and all that stuff. Okay, so that's Peter's thing. Now, I wanted to show you how that works for me. So this morning I went in just what I showed you with Stanton. This is me playing something, practicing the groove that you saw there. Here it is. Okay, so you see how that can be a cool tool. Now, you can also use it to develop songs and projects and all that, but that's how I'm using it. No comments. Gee, I hope somebody's out there. Let's go to some news of the day, all right? I know Peter, the aforementioned Mr. Erskine, mentioned that maybe some of the drumhead companies could come up with something to help with this. Now here's a story related to drums and coronavirus. Evans says there, from drumhead to face shield, I understand you can play that face shield with a 2B. No, I'm just kidding. And Remo, I know, it hasn't done this, but they're involved with all kinds of medical help for a lot of things anyway. Okay. Oh, by the way, there was one other thing I didn't show you. I didn't show you this. The Erskine thing, when we did his package, what we wanted to do was show how accurate it was. So we did a split screen video, 2 different occasions. This was in his studio, him playing 4s or 8s with himself. That was recorded at 2 different times. One time on the left, you'll see he's playing his natural drums, and on the right, he's playing those drums and cymbals that are sampled. And they go back and forth, and man, the results are amazing. Check it out.
Let's jam. Count it off. And 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, if you don't think that's an amazing piece of work there from all parties, so thank you to Peter. We won a Drummy for that, by the way, a real award. So I was thrilled with that, and it's always a pleasure to work. We've been knowing each other for decades, but we finally got to work together on that one, which I most appreciate. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about was since let me take this off because it's a delay in my head. I needed it to hear the other things. Since everybody's home and we're all trying to communicate. People are looking to do Skype lessons. People are looking to do live streaming. People just want to connect with other drummers and other musicians. So over the weekend, it was odd that since I know a little bit about this stuff, a bunch of friends called me and, hey man, help me out with this stuff. Help me out with this. So I'm happy to answer some questions. I do some coaching on this if you got some serious technical obstacles, but what we all determined, and there were 4 or 5 of us calling each other up saying, how's this sound? Oh, it sounds like shit. How's this sound? Well, that's a little better. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Are my lips in sync? And things like that. We worked down because we're all driving our wives nuts. So, with somebody in the house on another computer standing there listening and giving it back to us. So we have a pact with a bunch of us to help each other out when nobody else can. You need some people on the other end. What we decided was the easiest way to do this is with Skype or Zoom, run on a laptop or a desktop, because what we're assuming is that if you're teaching, especially kids, you can't expect an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old to go out and spend a few $100, $300 on gear. I have the ability to send nice sounds from here through all this stuff I have. What we want is stuff where the kid can just, assume it's a kid, it doesn't have to be, can use the internal mic and the internal camera in whatever they have. And the problem with that is if you hold up a phone in a room just like this, with an open drum set behind it, it's going to sound horrible. It's going to break up to the point where it's almost unrecognizable from the teacher's side. So what we decided is if you use Skype or Zoom and your internal camera, those settings allow for you to go in there and adjust the microphone setting so that if you put it really low enough, it won't blow out your teacher with, you'll be able to tell what you're playing and it sounds reasonably okay. And you'll still be able to hear the student when they talk. However, the iPhone and the Android, the phones and the tablets don't guarantee access to the input mic. So there are a lot of mics you can buy that go into your phone various ways. USB through a connector, mini plug through a connector, lightning connector, but you can't be assured, and most of the time it's not going to work where Skype or Zoom know that that's the mic, and they won't see it. So that's my tip of the iceberg sort of advice on this if you want to do it. Zoom seems to give you a little more control. You're not recording it anyway. I think more stores that do lessons locally should look at this as an option with an online component because it expands their reach beyond the neighborhood, and it's safe. If you're dealing with children online, well, they can always open up QuickTime and record every lesson. So, you don't have to worry about if you have a staff of 20 people, you want to put windows on the doors and make sure that everything's on the up and up. So you can still do that online. Okay. So that's my suggestion for that. A few other things to come up with before we go. Drummer Nation is expanding as a network. So I have the Drummer Nation network, let's call it. The podcast I do, which is formal interviews with well-known drummers and industry people. And then this is the live show you're seeing now. So the basis of it is the network, the interview show, and the live show. Okay. Now we're also adding, and we're taking our time about this too, some other shows. Classic Conversations hosted by Steve Bryant. Johnny Vodakovich Unscripted, where he says whatever the hell he wants because he's Johnny Vodakovich, and eDrum Guru from Mike Snyder. So that represents the balance of the other 3 shows. And there you see them. So for all 6 of them, we've got, oh, I'm having fun with this. The pre-record, whoops, come on. The live show, and then Steve Bryant's, Johnny Vodakovich. I'm having to reach around my mic is the problem, and Mike Snyder. Okay? Now then, I have some guests coming up. Pretty soon, next week, I'm going to interview Matt Brennan, who did this Social History of the Drum Set. Very cool book. I've been working. I wanted to get through I set it up to where I could finish the book before we talked. I like to really have a handle on what they're talking about. So the Duca da Fonseca is coming up. A bunch of people in the works. If you want to be on the show, let me know. If you have some show ideas, please let me know that too. Just write us, show topics. There you go, info@drummernation.com. Sign up for our newsletter. It looks like that. You'll get a free paper on social media for artists. If you're of an open heart and you're not totally broke right now, maybe support us on Patreon. You know what that's all about. Okay? I think that might cover the show. I hope it went live. If not, I'll post it in post. So you see, I'm having to reach over my mic. I got to find a better way to do this. Anyway, I've had fun on this show, and forgive me for all the switching. It's a lot to do by yourself, but hey, it's fun. Hope you've enjoyed it. All right, with that, we're going to go into the closing credits. We thank the people who air this show on their Facebook page, and then we take it out with a bumper. All right, see you again next time. Thanks for watching. Take care.